Going on, everyone. I'll send it all over to Shah now. Apologies for the voice. I'm a bit under the weather at the minute, but yeah, we keep going. As always, this is live on YouTube. So if anybody has any questions, fire them over. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Yes, mate, you're good.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for joining me. So yeah, so Shah Kamali making his pro debut at LFL on the 29th of October. Um, Pro debut in a different country, which is a bit unheard of, really. I think definitely a big moment for you, I can imagine. But we'll get onto that in just a moment. First things first. First thing we always get to on here with a new guest is, how did you get started in MMA?
I got started about 4.5 years ago. I was just looking for a new hobby before starting university, and I just stumbled across BJJ. And as soon as took my first lesson, you know how it gets. You get the bug, you get addicted, and as soon as I started jiu-jitsu, I wanted to just challenge myself more and more, and that's when MMA came into the picture. And yeah.
Was it how easy was it for you to pick up the MMA? I haven't started with BJJ.
It was pretty difficult because I've never done striking before in my life, so having to learn having to learn that was one of the biggest learning curves. I think grappling is a little bit intuitive, like you can figure things out a bit easier, but striking, there's a lot more, distance management, things like that. It's a bit harder to perceive. Whereas when you're grappling, you can, put your hand here, you can feel things more. Whereas when you're striking, there's the element of your own, reflexes and perception. It comes into play more.
Yeah, and I think with striking as well, there's so many different ways your opponent can approach it. Whereas with your grappling, it's kind of all very similar in a way.
Yeah,
So I think there's so much more unexpectedness with striking.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Whereas grappling, you're doing like things like sequences. So, it's A, B, C, and striking, there is similar sequences, but it's there's more things you have to kind of consider.
Yeah, definitely. So for those who might not be familiar with you, what kind of fighter are you? What can they expect when it comes to fight nights?
Uh, they can just expect like explosive violence because I finished all my fights in the first round. There's not a lot of, a lot of heavyweights. There's heavyweights with power, and then there's heavyweights with knockout power, like fight changing, ending power, and I've got that, so I've been blessed with that power, and I just come to finish fights. I'm not there to, be in there any longer than I have to. I just want to finish the fight, and that's it.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there, none of your fights have gone out of the first round so far. You're 6-0 as an amateur, a very successful amateur career. Number one ranked heavyweight in the UK and Ireland. Um, do you feel like you'd accomplished all that you could have done at amateur?
Um, the only the only thing that I haven't particularly gone down the route of was IMAF, so I haven't accomplished all that I could have. I could have competed in IMFs, but just the opportunities never really lined up for me. With like personal life and also having fights booked and world championships here and there, or European championships, it never lined up for me in that way. But in terms of everything else, I think I've I've gone up the country, won a belt. I've defended my belt in London and in the South multiple times. So I think that I've accomplished, you know, uh, enough to justify the move to pro.
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned, making your pro debut at LFL on October 29th, heading over to Amsterdam for that big event. What was it about LFL that made it the right move for you at this stage?
Um, just the fact that they approached me first. They approached me a while ago. Before my fifth fight, I think. Before my fifth fight, they approached me and they wanted me on their show. I said, when I have my debut, I'd love to make my debut on your show. And just from there, really. Um, Me personally, I like fighting away from home. I'm not sure why. It's just a preference. I wanna fight all around the world and get my name known out in all of the corners of the world. I think Amsterdam is a great place to do that, and yeah, just want to get out there.
Yeah. Were there any other offers on the table in between LFL approaching you and actually signing with them?
There was none that I never really put my name out there. I kind of just had LFL in mind. I didn't really bother looking too far because I've been talking with the promoter Donovan. We've got a kind of a plan there, and he's good to work with. So I didn't really look at too many options in that.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how much are you looking forward to fighting in front of that Amsterdam crowd?
I'm really looking forward to it. The main event of the card is my training partner Mario Pinto. He's 6-0 heavyweight. He's defending his belt against a good opponent, and it's always good to be in camp with someone who's fighting on the same card as you and same event. It's also nerve-wracking, but when you're both preparing and you got the same date and the same event and the same show, it's a lot more. It's a lot bigger and more special because he's gonna have his guys flying out to Amsterdam. I'm gonna have my guys, my fans, my supporters, my friends coming out to support, and it's gonna be a great atmosphere for sure.
Yeah. So you are fighting Jimmy Van Bemmelen. He's also making his debut at LFL. Now, he hasn't fought for 5 years when I was looking into him, but on their sort of promotional pictures, they've seemed to be ranking him as the second ranked heavyweight. What do you make of him as an opponent? Have you been able to see much of him?
He's got a lot of experience, and that's one thing I never ever disregard any of my opponents. It doesn't matter how long he's been out for. He might have still been training. He's got a lot more experience, so that's something that you have to weigh into account. And he's going to be tough. Like, I'm not expecting an easy fight from him. Um, I respect all my opponents, and I'm sure that he's going to he's going to give a good fight.
Yeah, yeah. Are you surprised that they are seeing him as the sort of second ranked heavyweight, given that he has been out of action for 5 years?
Not sure, but that's just how highly they must rate him. He's Dutch, so they must have their own sources and on that kind of information, on that kind of stuff. So I'm just it doesn't really matter to me too much what ranking someone is. I just see the fight. I see his strengths, his weaknesses, my strengths, and that's all that matters really.
Yeah. Do you think you kind of touched on it there, but do you think his time out of the cage will have any kind of significant impact?
Judging from past fighters, coming back after long layoffs, it's never really works out too well for them. I think cage time is a big advantage. If you've been active, and just feeling those nerves and being in the cage itself, it's a big bonus. So it definitely will play a factor. So, but I'm not thinking too much into that.
Yeah. So you mentioned it there, the main event, obviously Mario Pinto and Benjamin Shehik for the title. Obviously, you've got a sort of an interest in that anyway, with Mario being your teammate. Have you also got an eye on that in terms of sort of looking forward to the future? Is that obviously you're going to have your eye on that at some point, I'd imagine?
Yeah, 100%. I think God willing, Mario gets it done, and then soon after he's looking at big promotions, UFC, PFL, whatever comes his way. 7-0 as a heavyweight in Europe is people have gotten signed for less than that, and especially being an athletic heavyweight that already ranks you, top 10 in the world pretty much. So if you can wrestle, puts you top 5. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I think after he's done his business at LFL, I'm looking to take over the heavyweight division, and follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with Mario there, like you say, and he's agile, he can wrestle, he can grapple. It's kind of what promotions are looking for with heavyweights now. You look at someone like Tom Aspinall in the UFC, and he's all of that. And that's what promotions are really looking for at the moment. So, like you say, if when he defends that title and gets the win, yeah, I think big things on the horizon.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. He probably had the opportunity to sign on at the UFC, but he wants to take his time. He wants to gain more experience. When you get to the UFC and the big stages, you're there. You want to be there to stay there. You don't want to get signed and get cut. Some guys, that's what happens.
Yeah. How how beneficial is it for fighters, starting out the pro careers like yourself, or ones that are kind of looking to make the move from an LFL to a UFC and things like that? How beneficial is it that there's so many promotions available now that are putting on big shows? Like, it seems to be in a really brilliant place for fighters at the moment.
100%. I think there's a lot more. MMA in Europe is growing quite a bit. You have good shows. Aries, Octagon, LFL. A lot of these shows are putting on, you know, big, giving big opportunities to fighters. And I think even Cage Warriors in the UK here, they're putting on good shows. Even though they might not have a heavyweight division, it's giving the opportunity for talent to emerge and shine. And you can see it with the way it's expanding. Octagon are having a show in November up in Manchester, and Channel 4 are showing MMA now. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I think MMA is one of the sports that are, is rapidly rising, and it's just good that these shows are that they have the long-term investment and vision for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you fight out of Fight Zone London. How much of your skills improved since you've been in there?
From day one, I've started from zero from there. It's like all of the coaches that they just they invest a lot into you know um their students, and even in my if I'm doing nogi, for example, the coach knows that I'm an MMA guy, so he will come and say, this might work, because he's teaching in a broader sense for the nogi guys in terms of the framework of jiu-jitsu points and those rules. But he'll come over to us and say, but if you're because you guys are doing MMA, I just want you guys to focus on pin, control, position, because you can strike from here and this things like that. So all of these things play a big factor in my growth, and there's like it's just really helpful to have like open-minded coaches like that who want to help you in every way possible.
Yeah. So one thing I did notice looking through your profile is obviously you've got the Bangladesh flag very prominent throughout your profile, even in the picture I used to promote this episode. You're very, very proud of your cultural heritage with that. Just how proud is it for you to be able to represent Bangladesh in that way?
It's massive. It's massive. There's not a lot of athletes from Bangladesh. Like, there's not a lot of, especially in my community. My community is predominantly Bangladeshi, and there's not really many athletes that come out of where I come from. There's they don't really have that vision to achieve or pursue an athletic career. So for me and my community to represent them, it's a big thing. Like, it's wherever I go, people say, it's massive what you're doing, because you're showing like kids. It's just representation. It matters a lot. Seeing someone from your own background make it or do things, achieve things, and I just want to show around the world, Bangladeshi people or people from you know my corner of the world, they can achieve in sports.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, as you mentioned, sort of South Asian, sort of British athletes are very, very few and far between. There's not a great deal you could really really name. I think the only one I can really think of off the top of my head is the footballer Hamza Chowdhury.
Yeah,
You know, so for you to be sort of, you know, you're at the forefront of that just because they are so few and far between, and hopefully it can be a sort of an inspiration to others to get involved, because like you say, this you know from being in the community, there's so much talent there that probably goes unnoticed because they maybe don't get the opportunities.
100%. Yeah, just sometimes just people need something to just look at and see and think, if he can do it, I can do it. You know, it's massive, it's major.
Yeah,
Even for me, like personally, like growing up, I used to look at, sports. I was a big fan of sports, boxing, football, everything. And I'd never look and see, someone who's like me that has made it. And I just think, why? Why is that? Why is that the case? Surely, people like, I know I have ambition, so why hasn't it ever happened before?
yeah. No, I understand. Completely agree. I think a big part of it, like you say, is people looking on the TV and seeing somebody who looks like them to really go, okay, if I can do this. So yeah, I think it's a great thing for you to be able to represent that. Um, so final question then: when the cage door closes on fight night, you're looking across from your opponent. What can fans expect?
Fans can expect just brutal violence. I think people say this is a sport. For me, this is pure violence, man. Pure violence. This is not. I don't think people understand. When the cage door closes, it's there's a different thing that comes out inside of me, and they can just expect violence, pure violence.
Yeah, love it, love it. Well, look, thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck on October the 29th. I can't wait to see you in action.
Sweet. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity and the time.
Ah, my pleasure, mate. My pleasure.